What's up, YouTube? Here we go. Another day working on the old Pro XR 800. Let's get after it. So first thing I'm doing is I'm ripping this rear skid out. Gonna go through. I mean, these Hyfax are super bad. This one's all cracked and busted up. The other one's completely split. I got some brand new Hyfaxes here, and I got some new takeoff rails. I'd like to say brand new, but they're not. They're from my stepdad's Pro X2 that he bought brand new. He rode it one time and then put the full length 136 rails for the snowcross or hillcross setup. And so I got his original rails that have one ride on them. And swapped this out, replaced some bearings, rebuilt some shocks. You know how it is. Lots of busy detail work to make it much nicer, but unfortunately not super entertaining to watch. So I'm gonna go ahead rip these bolts out. I got this side down. I'm gonna tip it on the other side, pull the bolts out of that. You know, now that I'm looking at it, these rails ain't as beat up as I thought they were. Maybe I replaced them back in the day. Oh no, they are beat up. There it is. Found it. Thick. I did have to change it. Plus I can see that was starting to get a little play in it too. Anyways. Shoo! Not gonna lie, I kind of assumed my shocks would be blown out, but fucker's still good. Alright, there you have it. Whole Pro X skid with no rails. Those Hyfaxes were done. Didn't chew up the track at all though. I mean, all the clips still in great shape. Super happy about that. So, like you guys saw, this shock, still good. That shock, not so sure. Gotta pull it, pull the spring, compress it, see if it presses with no air or anything inside or gas leak by to where it should be, and make sure it still has a rebound indicating that it still has a nitrogen charge. So fortunately, no, you guys aren't gonna get to see the rear shock get rebuilt. It just is what it is. I'm not wasting my oil, my nitrogen, my seal kits, nor my time, because just not doing it. It's still good. I'll rebuild it when it needs done. But front or center, there's a possibility. We'll check that out here just a moment. Okay, got the shock in the vise. I got my spring compressor here. Pretty much it just uses leverage and compresses the spring, to which you pull the retainer out and off you go. Can't do it with one hand, but I'll give you a little demonstration. All right, so from here, all you do is compress your shock and listen. Make sure you don't hear anything out of the ordinary. It should be near silent and a continuous motion down. It shouldn't jerk or do anything weird. It should also rebound all the way. So if you, I don't know if you guys can hear it, but hear that? That is because my seals were leaking. I already wiped it down and it has expelled oil out of it, and is pretty much, it has air, water, or nitrogen in the housing rather than just oil. So that's super unfortunate. We're gonna have to rebuild the center shock. Okay, I'll keep it real short and brief. I did see the comment when somebody wanted to see more about the shock rebuilding process. I'm gonna get super in depth, but I'll kind of try to take you guys step by step through what I do. Very first thing I do, I remove that screw, and then I'm gonna go ahead and get my needle set up and release all the nitrogen from the shock. Now when I say my needle, this is what I'm talking about. This is how I can make sure I have enough pressure, which really, you don't need this gauge because my regulators, my bottle do it for me. But for the most part, this is how I introduce and release nitrogen from the shocks. Okay, from there, you're gonna go ahead and break this loose. And yeah, that's pretty much it. You're gonna unscrew it. Now I don't take these all the way out right away. I like to stop, see if I can wiggle it around. If there's any pressure built up, it'll kind of be released through the threads. This one's feeling like it's pretty good. just like that. You've now pulled out your cap, shaft, body cap, whatever you want to call that, and your valve stacks. Look at that, pretty blue orifices. That's pretty nice. It's funny, I don't remember these actually being blue. If somebody's replaced the piston itself, that's the blue part. That's your wear band, and then you have your valving, your stacks there and there, but there's also more stacks in the reservoir. Okay, this is just the shock side, but that's actually kind of cool. I like the blue. Okay, from there you take the nut off the end of the shaft, and then you're able to pull your compression valve stacks, your rebound valve stacks, your piston, all that off, and you're going to pull the shock body cap off. Now this is where your seals are, and this is typically what will end up leaking and letting all your oils out of your shock. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of check it out. Boy, it looks really nice. It doesn't look all beat up or wore out. So I think we'll get away with just replacing some seals. Hell yeah. Now, as far as parts go, this is what I use. Getting from High Gear Suspension, I use their Walker Evans 625 hybrid kit. I'm not going to use everything in here. This is to cover multiple different types of Walker Evans shocks. Like damn near all of them, like a lot of Walker Evans can be rebuilt with this single kit, right? So this is what I use, and yeah, I'm going to go ahead and start pulling stuff apart and replacing all the O-rings and seals. Okay, so I've gotten the seals and O-rings off this part of the shock that I want to replace, and now it's time to replace them with new stuff. Pretty simple. Okay, as I go along, kind of clean parts up, making them more shiny. Put new seals in, new O-ring on the inside as well as on the exterior. Took a little bit of shock oil, lubricated the seal and the O-rings on the inside, slipped it over the shaft, and then from there, pretty much good to put my cleaned up stuff, you know. So I'm gonna put my my piston and my shim stacks and everything back on the shock, but however, I'm not gonna do this on video. I'd like to use two hands. Okay, I pulled my valve stack off, and just random insight, just so you guys know, like there's a whole stack of little shims here, and if you'll notice, some are smaller, some are bigger in diameter and thicknesses. Now what that does is every time your shock moves, it is bending and flexing your compression and or rebound stacks, and that's what allows the fluid to bypass, is when it bends all these. So the wider they are, the easier are they to bend. The narrower, the stiffer they are, as well as the thicker, the stiffer, and vice versa. So like there's a whole lot of little science that goes into there. And then not only that, but let's flip this over, then you have your piston, right? So the orifice diameters and or shapes and design of your piston make a large difference as well. It's not only just that valve stack or just that valve stack, but the piston itself also makes a difference. Okay, I actually pulled this valve stack off, kind of got spread out, so you guys can kind of see what I'm talking about. Like there's a whole lot of little things going on in here. Ooh, that new old stock Proxar 800. Pretty. Some shocks. I was actually just down here because I was looking at newer style shocks. These are IQR stuff, and so the rear IQR shock is 15-inch, same as Proxar. This bigger, beefier shock will go right on the Proxar, and I've been contemplating throwing this on instead of the Proxar rear. But also, I thought, I don't know why, I thought the IQRs had a longer center shock. I know this is a 09 style, it's air shock. This is a 2011 IQR center. But I have an 05, so I haven't actually measured this one or brought it up to the garage. But I have a 2005 IQR center shock, which I'll show you guys here in just a second. So many pipes. Sheesh. Okay, here we go. comparison, 2005 IQR center shock versus 2004 Pro XR center shock. That's actually the 05 IQR. This is the 04 Pro XR. They are identical in length. Hose lengths are the same. The big difference here really is the caps for the clicker assemblies and the knob. That's pretty much the only difference I'm seeing. The reservoirs look the same, everything. So yeah, pretty crazy. I don't know why. For some reason, I always thought the IQRs had a longer center shock, but same. So technically, the rear shocks can be swapped out. You can run IQR rear shock, and I only say that because I've personally done it in the past on my very first Pro XR 800. I had IQR rear shock, and apparently we can run the centers as well. Okay, since this section is all done, complete, ready to go, I've gone ahead and disassembled the rest of the shock. So in here, this is the actual reservoir. You'll see this is where your IFP is and all that. Went ahead, tore apart my clicker assembly. So yeah, careful with this stuff because there's a little ball in there and stuff, and a couple little balls there that actually work for the detents in the knob and everything for adjusting the size of the orifice going through. And just so you know, there's the other valve stack in the clicker assembly. This is what adjusts how stiff or soft the overall shock is, because believe it or not, this orange Pro XR 800, like let's say the front shocks are, the shock itself is valved identical to, let's say, a Pro X2 800. However, the main difference is the clicker assembly is valved differently, which will affect how the shock acts. So anyways, this little fun tip. So I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna finish cleaning the body, the clicker parts. This is just the end of the reservoir cap that I was saying. I need to replace the O-ring, get this all cleaned up. Basically, make sure everything is freaking spotless, and then we can start working towards putting the shock back together, getting our IFP set again. So that's gonna be set at 2 inches inside the reservoir. So just little things like that you got to know, which if you don't know, well, pop open a manual. It has all the info right there for you. And if anyone's curious, oh my goodness, that could have been catastrophic. If anyone's curious what kind of tools I use for actual removal of the seals, I just have a couple picks at different angles. That's all that's needed for removing the seals. Super easy. And then I just push them in place by hand, a little lubrication, good to go. Hell yeah. Fortunately, this is time consuming, so I'm not going to film every single step along the way, but that's kind of as simple as I can make it. Make sure it's clean, new O-rings, new seals, assemble, IFP set correctly, work all the air out of it, pump it full of nitrogen, life would be great. Alright, assembly's begun. Got the IFP put back in. Of course, I got the screw removed. I'm going to go ahead and continue to assemble the shock, and then basically I'm going to bleed all the fluid from the shock body through the hose and everything to the reservoir, and it's going to come out of there. Yeah, pretty much the gist of it, to get the air out of it. Yeah, and then the fun of getting it out of the shock body itself begins. So anyways, back to it. Okay, got the clicker assembly reassembled. Goes through. You can feel it, well, you guys can't feel it, but right there, clicking into place, the detents and everything are operating and moving as they should. So pretty pumped about that. Gonna go ahead, throw this back onto the reservoir. The IFP already set at 2 inches, and start moving forward. Now, yes, I know not everybody replaces all the O-rings, or I've seen a lot of people not even pull the clicker assembly apart and clean, you know, the valve stack and that. But I'm trying to do this one right, because I don't want to have to go through the shock again for, well, quite a while, especially because I don't ride this sled a whole lot. So it'd be nice if I just rebuild this one shock, luckily, that needs it, and I'm just good to go for several years. So anyways, this is actually kind of fun. I haven't done a walker Evans shock in a long time. So kind of a refresher to myself as I'm going through this. I mean, luckily I have manual stuff to be able to go back and, you know, double check myself. But yeah, pretty fun. Okay, got some shock oil in here. You can see it's bleeding itself out currently, so working beautifully. All right, reservoir done, minus nitrogen. Done bleeding that out. It's good. So I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna fill the shock body just below the threads, and I'm gonna start working the piston and shaft and all that in there, and I'm gonna get all the air bled out of the piston stack. I really need to build a bench just for shocks. That's gonna happen, but anyways, that's our next step here, and looking forward to it. So if you're ever sitting here like, man, these bubbles are never going away, and if I pull it back up, it's gonna suck the bubbles back into the stack. Fire is your friend. Gone. That's all it takes. You can take your time and wait for them to pop on their own, or you just very quickly whoop, pass over it with Spire. I use a little propane deal here, and it just gone immediately. And then you continue to work. See if you can get any more air bubbles out. Slowly working it up and down. Never pulling it out of the oil. Oh, yep, still getting some bubbles. They're still happening. Ah! So I'm just gonna work this thing until I quit seeing air. That's all there is to it. Okay, when it's all said and done, everything's bled out, you should be able to take the shock, compress it, and hear no air or anything weird going on inside of it. Mint. However, as you notice, it didn't rebound yet. So let's throw some nitrogen in this thing. So we're gonna go ahead, pump this thing up to 200 PSI. To be able to do that, you need a nitrogen tank with regulator set, hoses, etc. I just have a normal truck style on here, and pretty much I poke my needle into it and I introduce the nitrogen through the Schrader valve, and that's what pumps it up. Like I said, this is actually unnecessary because you have your gauges here. So when you open your bottle, you're gonna go ahead and get yourself dialed into 200. See, I'm actually a hair over. I do like, I don't know, 205-ish PSI. And the reason I do that is because when you actually pull the needle out, unless you leave this open to it, you lose a little bit of pressure in your shock. So I always run just a hair over 200 PSI. Okay, so I know it's not the best view. You're actually hanging in a pair of goggles on the wall right now, but you do see the top of the shock, and as I introduce the nitrogen, you are gonna see this run up. So I'm gonna go ahead and take my reservoir. I know you guys can't see it, but got my little needle set up. Poke it in there. Nice and gentle like. Actually, run a little oil on the needle. That way it doesn't tear up the rubber in there. Nice and gentle. There we go. What's going on? There we go. Ah, got her in. Took me a second. Residual pressure. Grab my little check valve here, and or not check valve. My handy dandy chuck. Here we go. Okay. Now let's slide my needle out. You hear that? That was it losing a little bit of pressure as I pulled the needle out. But it should be a hell of a lot stiffer, which it is. But it rebounds. Let's get this ball closed and out of my way real quick. Boy, these Peruxes are stiff. There you go. Fresh rebuilt shock. Sounds awesome. Smooth as can be. Fresh charge, fresh oil, fresh seals, all the O-rings, everything. It's all new, ready to go. Back on the skid. Unfortunately, I still need to get my new rails out of the shed. Start putting the skid back together. But yeah, there you have it. Got that fresh shock. Oh yeah. I like fresh shocks. I know a lot of people overlook stuff like that, but really, that's what makes a sled just... Anyways, till next time.